How much money does it take to change the world? How much money does it take to make lasting progress against global poverty? Would $1 billion be enough? 100 billion? For one man, it just took $27. $27 and a simple but compelling idea. That man is Muhammad Yunus. In 1976, in the midst of a deep economic downturn, Professor Yunus left the comfort of the university where he taught and talked to poor villagers around his city. In an impulsive moment, he took $27 out of his own pocket to a small group of 42 craftsmen. But Professor Yunus made it clear to these craftsmen that this was not a handout, as he believed that charity only makes the poor more dependent and vulnerable. Instead, it was to be a loan that they have to pay back, and they were more than happy to comply. That's when Muhammad Yunus has his revolutionary insight. He went on to establish one of the biggest microfinance enterprises, Grameen Bank, that transformed millions of lives and won him the Nobel Prize. Bill Drayton is the founder of Ashoka, Innovators for the Public. Ashoka works at the forefront of the rapid growing field of social entrepreneurship.
The development of Ashoka is very typical of the development of any major entrepreneurial venture. There was the challenge that came very sharp once I'd been in India. You must close this north-south gap. You must speed up development, democracy in the world. So there are many things that were very clear, but something was missing, and that was that the historical moment wasn't right. Then, as I was at EPA, we sensed that the historical moment was coming. You could hear the hinge creaking. My friends in India and elsewhere were starting to be social entrepreneurs.
Both Muhammad Yunus and Bill Drayton are the pioneers who have set the example in the arena of social entrepreneurship. A rapidly advancing field, social entrepreneurship is the process to work with pioneers and entrepreneurs in order to develop, fund and implement solutions to social, cultural and environmental issues. In less than 1 decade, investments in social entrepreneurship have grown from $8 billion to $22 billion. Today, main pillars of the society are taking keen interest in social entrepreneurship. Corporates bank on the innovation potential of social entrepreneurs. How does this aspect of social innovation affect our everyday life? Just take up your morning newspaper or glance through a Facebook post. There are but numerous sexual violence incidents against children. The problem doesn't seem to subside and our children are in perennial danger. Increasing severity of punishments doesn't seem to deter the offenders and the crimes are being committed with impunity. Is there any end to this? Is there any effective solution? Can our children ever feel safe from the eyes of sexual predators? In today's episode, we will tell you the story of pioneers who have faced numerous hurdles, ups and downs, and many impossible situations to bring about a transformation in a way we approach a serious social issue like sexual abuse of children.
We try and address the unmet needs of society. We look at the challenges that are facing us in the future. And to do that, we need innovation and we need new ways of thinking. And that's what we, as Bayer, as a company, is trying to do.
A serious challenge the world is facing today is child sexual abuse. A silent, violent epidemic as described by the American Medical Association. It increases the risk of lifelong physical and mental trauma that can affect millions of boys and girls globally. Innocent lives are affected due to this problem. Professor Klaus M. Bayer has a solution. Director of Sexology and Sexual Medicine at Charité Institute Berlin, Dr. Bayer is a strong proponent of primary prevention approach to sexual violence. Prevention involves intervention that helps prevent the occurrence of sexual violence incidents. He founded Prevention Project Dunkelfeld at Charité Hospital Berlin in 2005, which is providing treatment for self-identifying and help-seeking pedophiles and hebephiles outside of the legal system. It aims to help these men to learn continuous sexual self-control to prevent child sexual abuse and child pornography consumption.
We know from our neurobiological findings that the long-term consequences of child sexual abuse is very bad for the nervous system of the person. So the idea came up to promote primary prevention approaches. And we know that there are two types of offenders. One type is pedophilically inclined, which means he is suffering from pedophilia. This is a diagnosis of the World Health Organization and means that the person is attracted towards the prepubescent body scheme of children.
According to Dr. Bayer, this is the group that can be treated under the Project Dunkelfeld. However, the other type is a surrogate type offender who would use the children as substitute or surrogate for partner of similar age. And this group is not reachable through this treatment. If this project is successful, many children can be saved from child sexual abuse. Now, Dr. Klaus Bayer wants to extend this project to India. He seeks help from Richard. Richard agrees, but the challenges are many. In the words of Dr. Harish Shetty, a noted psychiatrist,
how would the society respond and react in terms of fringe groups which might get very angry at what you propose to do? How would people in power respond to this is also a very big question.
Klaus's primary prevention project in India would need to be steered with a strong political understanding to avoid any societal backlash, pulling together a group of experts from diverse fields like sexology, psychology, social sciences, information technology and communications, leading them as one unified group and delivering common objectives. Suhas Joshi, an avid swimmer and an ace troubleshooter, agrees to provide leadership, setting clear direction in ambiguous circumstances. With years of experience of managing political issues and solving unprecedented crises, Suhas knows that the project needs to be tread on a fine line between public attitude towards pedophilia and scientific primary prevention approaches. Steering project execution has to go hand in hand with resourceful management of public perception. He knows that Klaus's concept has to be adapted to Indian socio-cultural nuances with a strong involvement of local experts, and Ananda can do it skillfully. A decade of journalism and public affairs, she can convince the opinion makers with ease. An accomplished Bharatnatyam dancer, Ananda is highly resourceful and knows how to mold the public opinion. Here comes a strong support right-hand man of Suhas, Chaitanya, who shares robust strategy understanding with his boss. Suhas and team have an impeccable track record, having proven their mettle by solving a crucial problem that affected the company's supply chain and shook the company's credibility at the core. What was the problem and how did Suhas and team manage to solve it? Let's take a step back. Year 2007. Bayer is in middle of a serious child labor scandal. Counter motions are raised in the annual shareholders meeting and activists are demonstrating outside. Members of the civil society are sending letters to the chairman and media is full of articles criticizing Bayer for the exploitation of child labor in its Indian seed operations. With more than 1,500 negative media articles, the public perception is at an all-time low. Dr. Davaluri Venkateshwarulu, a researcher and an activist, mobilized a strong civil society movement against employment of child labor in Indian seed production. Dr. Davaluri releases a scathing report in 2007, accusing national and international seed companies, including Bayer, exploiting child labor in their seed production operations in India. Alerted by the activists 6,000 kilometers away, Council on Ethics of the Norwegian Pension Fund decides to exclude Bayer from its investment universe. The fund is one of the largest, with around $900 billion under management. Consequences: battering of share prices and major reputational loss. Bayer Global Management is upset and actively considers exiting the seed business in India. This was not an easy issue to resolve. Child labor has been deeply rooted in Indian rural society. Children are involved in child labor in Indian subcontinent in various industries such as apparel, leather, agriculture and hazardous work. Hybrid seed production is one such industry where it is believed that the nimble fingers of the children help cross-pollinate the plants efficiently. Bayer sources cotton seed from thousands of contracted farmers across hundreds of villages, and these farmers employ children. Bayer is trapped, as aptly put by Julia Brummer, and there is no way out. The local management is in despair. But one man is convinced that the situation can be turned around. Bayer seed business can be protected. Suhas Joshi is convinced that this is the only option to be pursued. In the words of Professor Charles Dhanraj, H.F. Jerry Lenfest, Professor of Strategy, Fox School of Business, Temple University.
If you look at the Bayer's issue, you are confronted with this child labor problems. Now, the easiest solution for Bayer was to say, let's walk out of this and do something else, right? But I think that there was leadership to think through the issue and say to themselves, now this is an important social issue. You can't be in an agricultural market if you don't deal with these two large countries, India and China. And child labor is very prevalent in these two countries. So in essence, if you want to do crop science, you need to deal with this problem. It's a difficult problem, but how do you deal with that?
With a unique blend of working experience at the grassroots and the strategic outlook, Suhas embarks on a mission to manage the crisis. Suhas brings on board Manager of Public Affairs and Communications, Ananda, a seasoned media expert. 10 years of work with prominent Indian publication, The Times of India and The Economic Times under her sleeve. She can manage any public affairs crisis. While Suhas starts putting up in place an elaborate system of field monitoring, Ananda gets busy with building up her network in media and opinion makers. Suhas designed the three-pillar approach, and the most important pillar being the field monitoring mechanism. Field monitoring, a very sophisticated system that ensures each and every farm is visited several times during the crop season to check incidents of child labor. Suhas insists on an encouragement-centric approach over enforcement. Farmers should willingly give up the practice of child labor instead of the company forcing them to do so. The team works out a detailed communication plan to convince the farmers. Regular meetings are held in each seed farming village. Village committees are formed to mobilize local community against ills of child labor. Ananda has been meeting the journalists and opinion leaders over the last several months. The efforts are showing results, slowly but gradually. As the incidences of child labor decline in seed production farms, the tide is also turning in the media. As more and more stakeholders are convinced about the program, positive news articles start appearing. Words of Mr. R.N. Bhaskar, Consulting Editor, Free Press Journal.
In this age and time, corporates are under intense observation by various stakeholders. In this context, I would like to take up the example of the child care program of Bayer that the company has built over a decade. the company has built a comprehensive model that not only prevented damage to the reputation, but delivered solid business results such as enhanced productivity and improvement in quality.
Norwegian Council on Ethics agrees to withdraw the exclusion notice. Harvard Business Review publishes a case study on Bayer Child Care program that is being taught at top business schools the world over.
I keep telling the example of Bayer whenever I speak in the industry forums and public meetings to show that the work the Bayer has been doing since decades consistently to address the issue of child labor. Today, I can tell that the results are very encouraging and satisfying.
Back to year 2015. Dr. Klaus Bayer approaches Bayer to support the incubation of the Dunkelfeld project in India. However, incubation of Dunkelfeld is fraught with risks. Germany and India are culturally far apart. Replicating the German concept as it is in India would create a public furor. Misplaced accusations of mainstreaming pedophilia would crop up. The political narrative is based on public emotions and not strictly on science and logic. As Suhas and colleagues embark on the project implementation, he must find a way to deal with the complexities. A fine line has to be tread between achieving program objectives and balancing the public perception. He needs to create a team that would bring different kinds of expertise to the table so that various intricacies could be handled. Klaus has been in discussion with the KEM Hospital Research Center Pune as a potential partner. However, response has been anything but lukewarm. In the words of Dr. Parlikar, head of the Department Psychiatry at KEM,
my initial reaction was that this project is not likely to be successful in India because there is a high amount of stigma and taboo to discuss sexual matters in our culture. Acknowledging one's own sexual interest in children is extremely difficult, nearly impossible. Who would do that? When the proposal came up, the initial reaction of everyone, including ourselves, was skeptical but open for examination. Establishing a center at KEM Hospital would be a substantial undertaking. Was it worth all the trouble?
20% of the women worldwide and 10% of the men are sexually abused during childhood. I think now the time has come to face this problem and to actively do something to reduce the number of victims, because to do nothing is not a right answer in this field.
Another challenge, ironically, was the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, the POCSO. POCSO expects that every incidence of offence must be reported to the police authorities. This puts a lot of pressure on us as researchers and therapists. The dilemma is, should we be assessing and treating the patient who has volunteered for help according to medical ethics, or hand him over to the police according to the legal binding? This is completely unique situation and not comparable to the German project. Many self-motivated persons with pedophilia may not approach the center as they would be apprehensive. We are putting ourselves and the putative patients in a very delicate and potentially dangerous situation.
We have in Germany an advantage, which is the pledge of confidentiality. So we do not have any mandatory report laws in Germany, but we know from other countries that it would be possible to at least work with potential offenders, which means those one who know that they are pedophilically inclined and don't want to act out.
There is no breakthrough in sight. Email exchanges are leading to nowhere. The project is not able to even take off. Suhas's credibility is under pressure. He seeks a meeting with Dr. Parlikar. After patiently hearing Parlikar's concerns, both of them agree on carrying out a feasibility study to assess the disease burden and to forge an opinion from secondary stakeholders such as teachers, police personnel, NGOs at large. This would help to arrive at a culturally acceptable solution for India. The newly appointed director at KEM Hospital Research Centre, Dr. Laila Garda, also becomes a supporter. Now, with KEM on board, two psychologists from Mumbai, Janvi Doshi and Suchasmita Bose, and with research-driven NGO from Delhi, the team is complete to embark on the project implementation. A plan is charted out. Roles and responsibilities are defined. Feasibility study begins, which goes hand in hand with an intense awareness campaign. However, important stakeholders like government and media are unhappy.
In India, to do with sexual violence generates a lot of heated emotions. People tend to become spiteful, and there are a number of incidences where mobs have resorted to violence when they find a child sexual offender. Even if the project will not deal with offenders and only help seeking pedophiles, still it will take a great deal of time and resources to achieve a change in the mindset. Another fear for us is that some political groups may take advantage of such angry demonstrations and create havoc. It is too much of a risk.
Dr. Bayer's interview appears in a prominent Indian newspaper. The reactions from general public below the article are caustic. This realization to the team is hard-hitting and underlines the need for a structured public relations campaign. A comprehensive strategy is designed, which is quickly put in action. Suhas brings opinion makers like senior journalists, government bureaucrats, public personalities to sit around a table and discuss the way forward.
Now, can it be only deterrence? People say since I am from the police department, people say, why don't you be more strict, more strong, and more penal punishment should be there and they should be hanged, etc. Is it going to really help that way? The point is that awareness is essential on the part of the offender, that he has got this tendency in him and the awareness that he can get treated for this is something much more equally important.
The team is working in a meticulous manner, balancing the sensitivity around the issue. The team is working with many important partners such as civil society, NGOs, psychologists, medical fraternity, and addressing people's concern in a competent way.
Pritham brings on board Vijaya Rahatkar, chairperson of Maharashtra State Women's Commission. One month after the launch, Varsha reports that there are no patients forthcoming. Is the project a complete failure? 3 years of hard work has shown no results whatsoever. The initial fear of Dr. Parlikar has come true. Is this the end of the story? Can Project Dunkelfeld never succeed in India? Once again, the team is back at the discussion table. Months of communication campaign has not made any impact. Communication needs a major boost. Ashish Vidyarthi, award-winning Bollywood actor, a good friend of Ananda and Suhas for many years, can be the key. Vidyarthi can rally support of thousands within a few minutes. Will he agree to support the cause? That could change the fortunes of the project. Ananda decides to give Ashish a call. Ananda is dialing constantly. Third attempt and there is a hello on the other side. Ananda makes the proposal. Ashish is apprehensive. He wasn't an expert. Ananda shared the impact it has on life. Ashish agrees. The social media team is quickly aligned. Interview is planned for the next week and gets informed about the work done. On D-Day at Ashish's residence, cameras are being set up. Ashish is given detailed briefing on the child sexual abuse situation in India. As the subject turns to trauma suffered by the victims, the atmosphere becomes solemn. Ashish, in order to cheer up the team, starts a conversation. Everyone joins in. Turns out, common topics are literature and music too. Ashish asks Ananda to sing. Go. Atmosphere turns lively once again. Interview goes live on social media. And the response is overwhelming.
Ananda! Too good, my friend. Kya baat hai, kya baat hai.